And we're live! Quarter Life Critics, where we review the best TV and film the world has to offer. Today, May 10th, I'm joined by my best friends, Grant
Yo.
and Frederick.
Welcome.
And as you know, every week, every episode, should I say, one of us takes on a very special role of the director. And the director's job is to direct the episode by leading discussion, asking questions, and creating thought-provoking segments. And if you're joining from last time, you would know that we're currently reviewing our first series chosen by last time's director, Mr. Manning. And that series is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So we are now on the second installment of this. Someone argued the best series of all time. It's up there for sure.
Indisputably.
I mean, in terms of fantasy. So I've created a couple lovely segments for us to go over, but let's start with an introduction. Grant, you want to give me the rundown on this film?
The rundown. Yes, sir. The brief synopsis of this film. While Frodo and Sam edge closer to Mordor with the help of shifty Gollum, the divided fellowship makes a stand against Sauron's new ally, Saruman, and his hordes of Isengard.
Better than Sharon.
I like that synopsis too. Well, we can get into some of the film and a little bit of housekeeping items here, but this one was a long one, and I think we talked about in our last episode, we had a little bit of a varying opinion on extended or theatrical. So, I mean, right off the bat, which one did you guys watch?
I succumbed to your pressure, and my girlfriend loves these series, and she watches them all the time, especially when she's sick. But she usually just watches the theatrical ones, so we watched the extended version this time. 4 hours, and we did it. We did it organically. One 4 hour take. So that
Same.
I wanted to watch it. I dedicated a Friday night to it. And it's been a while since I've seen these. So I had a few drinks. I'm watching this 4 hours. So like, I feel like so much happens. I'm going to try my best to even remember what
right.
happened. It's like, you're just, I don't know, maybe the way our brains are wired now with the TikToks and the Instagram reels, we can't even sit down for 4 hours, let alone remember what we're watching. But I enjoyed it. It was a good experience. I definitely was a little worn out and had to do a little bit of a break, 5 or 10 minutes. Just
okay,
now,
but still
now
the
we're
same
back
night.
into it. Same night.
So similar thing with you, Pat. Extended time.
One session.
All right. Well, you guys are better men than I, because I went extended this time, and I think I did it in 2.
2 weeks.
Two.
Just 10 minutes a day, and you just kind of get through it.
2 10-minute sessions every day. No, I felt like I told you last time I switched actually mid-movie because I felt it was going too quickly. I mean, I was like it was jumping around from scene to scene. This one, I don't know if I would have watched extended. There were definitely some scenes where just consciously in my head I said, is this part of the extended? Like,
Me too.
This doesn't seem too super important, but maybe.
Which parts? Anything come to mind? 'Cause I felt like I don't know. I enjoy all the
I had a
side
similar.
quests and adjacent esque.
Things that are
Yeah.
going on. Grant?
Hmm.
I had a similar question in my head while I was watching, but it was more like from like a canon part. Like, oh, was this included? Is this? I don't remember this, so I kept on asking my girlfriend. I was like, is this part? Is this just the extended? Like, is this part of the extended, or is this like part of the movie? Because I've seen it not too long ago, the theatrical one, and there was things where I'm like, I don't remember that at all. Was or like if they're doing a scene for a long time, or they're kind of, I don't know. But she said this one's a lot more chock full of humor. Like, it's a lot funnier than the theatrical one. Theatrical one's a lot more dramatic.
A lot of pipe weed.
Yeah.
We'll get to that a little bit later.
Yeah, we will.
But to answer Pat's question, I think
The
some
pipe
of,
weed or the humor?
both.
Both.
So just some of the Rohan stuff was I felt just longer than maybe it needed to be. There's a lot of good, if you're in the mood and you soak it up as much as you can get, but
It's content.
it just felt a little bit long for my taste at the time. Because like you said, if I were to give like an oral report, right now, it'd be very difficult to go over like what exactly happened. I can talk about maybe some highlights, my favorite parts, but if you were just describe the plot of this film, I think it would be a little difficult. Would it be easy for you, Pat?
So
Could
I
you
read
give
a
us
lot of books, and books are frequently, complex. You got a lot of moving
There's a lot
parts,
going on.
and it's a lot of like material, inherently.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been trying to get better at this. I like tell Emily the plot, but I try and do it in a way so her eyes don't glaze over. And I am getting better. So it's a matter of concise and, getting them hooked and being coherent and getting like an actual plot out.
For books or for movies?
For books. So like sharing she's like, what book are you
So
reading?
tell me about it. And you're
Yeah,
like,
and I did that.
Back to the Aragorn Kingdom of 1492.
Exactly.
Just, like,
Yeah.
drifting
So it's like a
away.
fun little game I have in my head. I'm like, how I need to I have to spin it,
Yeah.
So I feel like I could do a plot, but I say that and I'm like, maybe I couldn't.
And then the Wizard of it's very like talking about some video game shit.
Mm-hmm.
You're interested because you're being nice and stuff, but there's a limit to like. Whoo! Oh, okay, I really didn't need all of this.
The hell up.
Yeah. Grant, did you feel that way at all before we move on? If you were to that synopsis you just read, you think that was too little?
Mm-hmm.
You could give much more.
What do you mean?
Just if someone asked you to recount, like, tell me the difference between the Two Towers and Fellowship of the Ring, like,
Yeah.
plot-wise, might be.
Why are you putting him on the spot, Quinn?
They're traveling to
Quinn,
Mordor.
Quinn, just be nice. You're
All
the
right.
director here.
Well,
You're not...
let's
more caring.
move on to some of actually trying to answer some of these plot questions, and I'm interested now in hearing Pat's long-winded explanations of things that I don't. Okay, well, I'll take both.
Okay.
So I named this one Gandalf the Who for a reason. I think it's a good introduction to some of the plot elements that may come across better in the books than the movies. And even when I went to like look at some of these things, I still was left in the Emily stage. I was like, oh, what the hell? So maybe our first question is, how did Gandalf the Grey, who we knew from the first film, become Gandalf the White? What happened? Patrick?
I thought. You go, Pat.
Okay. So the white, as I know it, it's not necessarily it's like a role, it's like the president, there's just the president. And so like he's one of the wizards, and I think there's like 7 or 9 or 11 or some like fancy number for
Odd
the
number.
wizards in Middle Earth. And the white is like the leader, most powerful, and it's like denoted by some sort of like ethereal heavenly body, whatever. So Saruman, corrupt, bad, was the white. Gandalf sacrificed his life for, with the Balrog and the Fellowship, and was kind of like reborn as the white because he was kind of like deemed as worthy. That's my interpretation. I'm sure there's like a more lore answer, but it's like a role that exists in Middle Earth for like this number of wizards who are like always kind of there. And so he was the gray, and he was like reborn into the white because the white was like, he's like fired, but they didn't tell him.
So does he still have access to his previous memories and personality? Because it seemed like he kind of did.
He explained this, right? He like lived,
Yeah, it was
he lived like 3,000 lifetimes,
lives
or something.
over and
Yeah.
over and over.
over and over. So like, yes, but it was so long
ago.
It's like bro had the biggest K-hole ever, and then he weighs up. He's like, I don't even remember who, what I was, and it's like such a past. It's like his old life is like he read a book once and about his old life. Like he doesn't. It feels like he has no real memory of experiencing it himself, right? And it's like such distant memories, and yeah, he transformed from. He thought he was going to die. I think he thought he was never going to wake up, and then he was kind of like what Pat said, was awakened for a purpose.
I think I didn't realize, or I didn't accept this. Would you call it reincarnation? This is just part of the universe. Like, I know there's a lot of magical elements at play, but people still die, and it seems like when you die, that's it. But
So there's like people, right? Like Frodo, if he dies,
Men.
he's not going to be reborn. Men,
hobbits.
but
Well,
like
Frodo's not a human.
halfling, whatever.
Yeah.
Human.
Right?
as
Well,
a
I
race.
just like I guess like when you're breaking it down, right? There's
Yeah.
there's different races, right? There's hobbit, there's humans, there are elves, there's dwarves, there's wizards.
I
So
don't.
those are,
I don't
like-
see race, so this is
It's
a little
like
difficult
men
for
are
me.
like at the bottom, then it's like halflings with like lifespan, then dwarves, then elves, and then at the top, this like when you're kind of like a godly figure, like Sauron, like one of the wizards, like Saruman or Gandalf, and there's a couple others who aren't mentioned, but they're like hermits. Like there's one who's the green, I think, or the brown, I can't remember, but he's basically like a raggedy man who just lives in the woods.
Do they talk about him more in the books, like the other wizards?
Yeah, I forget what, but a little bit. And then there's like some more the Similarian, which is like after the fact, I think goes into the lore. But like those figures get kind of reincarnated. Like even think about like the Dark Riders, those are guys, but they've got this magical tie to the world that keeps them kind of like existing. So even if you kill them, they keep coming back.
Yeah, they were human kings, right? They were
Just
corrupted.
men.
Yeah, they weren't kings.
They were
I
kings.
thought they were kings. Yeah, okay, yeah. Human kings, men.
Yes.
Kings
of men.
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 They were man kings.
So Gandalf the White. I mean, yeah, he's lived in this new role. He's much more powerful and
Handsome.
handsome and can do a lot more. All right, this is making sense. Now, is there anything, speaking of confusing parts, is there anything that stumped you, Pat? Was there like, what the hell? I don't remember this from the books, and it's a little confusing in this film. Or did it all kind of click?
It's kind of like funny. It's like, I don't remember the King of Rohan, but him like uncrusting himself.
Threadin, Theer, whatever?
The former Wormtongue Saruman captured soul. Him like
Theoden, yes, the King of Rohan.
just like his whole like it's just kind of like
I didn't-
did this slimy guy really like take a I don't know, this just seems a little like far-fetched.
I wasn't expecting him to get younger. after he
Exactly. His
came up.
uncrusting is like, what's going on? Like, I don't know.
What about you, Grant? Anything that you wanted to ask the experts?
That just the piece about the wizards. I'm curious if those were mentioned. Pat answered that. Um, no, I mean it's from what I remember. Like I was following along.
Okay.
Wasn't I think I was more confused. I don't know. The more I watch it, right, and I think I said this the first film. It's like I feel like you definitely want to continue to watch it. Um, and I knew what was going on in this one, so I kind of could enjoy the ride a little bit more. I
Good.
was a little bit confused, like I wasn't sure. It's all like, coming to a point, and I didn't really understand that watching through it. So it's flipping. There's a lot of storylines going on at
Yeah.
once. It's like converging. It's like Game of Thrones, and you're like, so it can be a little jarring, but
Game of Thrones is like this.
Game of Thrones is like this. Yeah, but that converging. I mean, it's cool, but even what Mary and Pippin, like that whole thing was like I had to ask. I also had like my girlfriend to ask these questions live. I'm like, what's going on, So I think I asked probably a decent amount of questions, but I didn't understand.
What's with the tree?
Yeah, because like Gandalf like was like saw them, right? Like I was confused about that. Like Gandalf had seen them and knew they were alive like
Because you
earlier.
think they're going to be like led to Saruman, but it's actually Gandalf. Gandalf.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
don't know if
then-
he saw them though. Or
Yeah, he saw Merry and Pip, right? Because that's the tree guy says, "I'm going to take you to the White Wizard," and then
Yeah.
he walks, and then they cut right before they show the face of it.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you're like,
yeah.
"Oh,
And he's
Saruman
glowing
got
and
him."
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this leads us right into another similar, tangentially related topic. All sequels suck, which I named. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. But so this was the sequel to The Fellowship of the Ring, which I think
Is
similar
it-
reviews now, but probably I mean when it came out was still had great reviews, and people probably doubted or were skeptical if a sequel could come up to could match the first one. But I think Grant already touched upon it. One thing I noticed in the difference between the first one and the second one is this converging plot lines. You're not following one group of people the whole time. It's this split, which sounded like Grant didn't like that much. But
It was
thought
good. I think it builds up the tension, right? Like I just wasn't fully aware. It's like you kind of have to watch these a few times. I feel like they're so dense.
Yeah, even to just get the names of things. A lot of mythology going on too. But what did you think compared to the first one? Are there things that stuck out that made you think, "Oh wow, that's a unique spin," or it's just the same as the first one and that was great and keep it great, or maybe this one sucked?
Yeah, so to me, it's not. It's hard to even consider a sequel. I mean, they made the first one knowing they're gonna make three. It's a trilogy. from the
Actually, we're
beginning.
gonna make two, and that was the original plan. Because isn't
Okay.
Yeah,
This one was supposed to be but it's still, regardless, they have the set story to tell, and it's gonna
They
be
have
multiple
some-
movies, right? And so it doesn't feel like a sequel at all to me. It feels like a second. I'm reading the wiki. It's like it's the second installment. That's what it feels like. It's the second installment in this series. It's like a second episode. We're still, the climax has not happened. I think that's why this is. I don't know. It's
I'd push back a little bit
I,
on that. Yeah, go ahead, Pat.
I think they all have a inherent story inside each movie, though. Like this movie was about, there were three storylines roughly: Merry and Pippin taking back Isengard, Aragorn, Gimli, Legolas with like helping Rohan, fighting for men, when there's no hope, unifying some of the races, elves are once again fighting with men. And then Frodo and Sam and Gollum, their shifty friend, struggling and, enduring, the bleakness of their journey.
I'm not
And
saying
like I
there's
think,
not. Yeah, sorry.
but like I think like there was a client, like I don't know, I felt like they each had like a whole kind of story.
I think there's many creative liberties and changes made to the source material to create like a film that can be shown in theaters and
Yeah.
is not, because it's a lot different than a chapter of a book. I mean, maybe there might not be a climax or something notable that happens in a one chapter, but if you're making a movie, I think you need to have some of its own. That's why TV shows are so crazy too, because I mean, you're building this one big plot, but like every single one, they need to leave you feeling with a sense of, oh, I want to watch the next one. That was great, or suspense.
Yeah, but the story's not. It's still right. Like the main plot is just slowly progressing, and they were veered off track a little bit. But this one's now set up for the final leg. Like I don't know. To me, I feel like they're very soft arcs, but there's a massive arc that's been happening, right? And it does. I have not watching either the first or second felt resolved really much at all from watching these. Like I ends and I'm like, okay, yeah, that was good, that was entertaining, but I mean, it's not over. You can't end it, right? Like it's still the story hasn't resolved. It's like it's just an installment to me until they deliver the Ring to Mordor. That is the whole story.
I agree and I
Yes.
disagree. Yeah, Pat.
So inherently, yeah, because it's the Lord of the Rings and then like mini story, So like
Yeah.
it's fulfilling Lord of the Rings, like moving that major arc along, but it is also like it's like the two towers, Isengard and kind of Mordor. I don't really get the second tower reference like that much, but one tower is pretty clear.
I think there's a lot of it depends on how they present it and the emotional response to some of the events, because even like mid plot events can be very large. Like when you said there's no climax, I mean, if I had water in my mouth, I would have went
Helm's Deep,
it out.
bro.
I was like, Helm's Deep was the best.
Yeah.
Best point in the film. I mean, that I thought it was a little slow and it dragged on, but I mean, once that battle, which took like
Yeah.
30 or so minutes, I mean, that was one of the best things I've seen in a while that I remember.
When the elves show up, bro, we'll once again stand with men.
Yeah.
Shit's fire.
So I think you're right.
Old
I mean,
guys losing the arrow.
Another thing that I remembered is I saw so many clips of the last film as a kid, and I remember so many things. And I was watching this one, and I was like, I've never seen this one. This one escaped from my memory. But the moment fucking Legolas is sliding down on his shield on the stairs, I was like, wait, I've seen that before. That's so sweet.
Oh,
I
yeah.
tried that
Yeah,
with the
I've seen-
mattress.
Yeah.
I think I did try that with like the mats that went in the pool,
Yeah,
Tried to go
something like
downstairs
that.
and
It was
those,
very
and it's pretty hard to do smoothly.
and throwing Gimli on the across to the bridge.
Don't tell the elf.
Dude, that was like it's like yeah. That battle was so sick. That was great. And then with Gandalf emerging like at the end, and like the thing
dawn?
is he's like he tells Aragorn, he's like, right, it was Aragorn, he's like the dawn of the fifth day, and then so much happens you like forget about it, and then it's like the dawn of the fifth day, and you're like, oh fuck. But that bridge
Mm-hmm.
scene you said with Gimli, bro, like it's like they are like obviously the orcs could not do shit, you know, like he throws it. It's like 2 on like 30, 300.
Thousand.
Yeah, 300,000. Like yeah, it's crazy, but it's so fun to watch, and it's like an action movie, But but it's like for me, maybe it's just the way my brain works. Like now I know I'll remember. Oh, the fifth. It's like having that action of Gandalf returning, and it's like it builds up, and it's like something I would keep in mind the next watch. I'd be like, oh boy, Gandalf's gonna come.
coming.
That's not so.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
epic. But like the first watch, when you go through, you don't know what's gonna happen. So you're like, okay, like what's gonna happen, and like I don't know. Maybe it's just the way like I digest things, but I think I will enjoy these more and more the more I watch them, knowing a bit of what to look forward to next.
Yeah,
You know?
Helm's Deep was so depressing, dude. All those people were like, those are the fucking scrubs, dude. I'm like, you guys are not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Those are rough. Aragorn's looking at that little kid's sword, and he's like, "So good sword." I'm like, "That's not a good sword." That
No,
looks
that
like,
was a rusty sword, bro.
I don't know.
I think there was a lot. I mean, we noted last time that there wasn't too much CGI stuff going on. I mean, a little bit, Balrog and some other things, but this one, I mean, I think they took it full force. They knew they were spending money on this one.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on.
They knew they were
And it
making
looks-
money
I
on
think
this,
it-
so
I
they
think
could-
it held
they could
up.
spend money. Yeah.
Right.
But the first one, I feel like you don't need as much too, because it's more like getting who's in the gang. We're getting the gang together.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
get Orlando Bloom's pretty face. And
The Shire doesn't need much CGI. You just get like some potatoes coming out of the ground.
some camera tricks for the hobbits. Potatoes. That was. There's nothing. Is there anything magical? I don't know if I missed it. I mean, at one point they hid from the dumb guards because they threw a potato sack over their heads. Is that? At the time, I was like, oh, they're gonna explain. It's like, is that a magic elvish potato sack or something? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know this scene.
They reach Mordor, and they're like, oh my God, there's a million people. We can't get in. And then
and they
Sam and
get-
Frodo,
Yeah, they like fall.
So
they fall. Yeah.
Yeah.
So those are like when they I forget what that place was. In the first movie they met the elves
At
in the
Rivendell?
woods. Yeah. No, the next place in the wood, the queen, the lady of the forest or whatever.
Yeah, where she took care of Frodo.
Yeah. And they left with they had cloaks, they had
Okay.
the pin, they had all the lembas, the bread, and they had they got gifts, and basically those cloaks are like camouflage.
Okay, I was gonna say, I was like, I must have missed something. I don't know if
They don't
just-
really explain it, but it's like
Alright.
they're like they got the party got like
The
their
party got some
special
gifts.
gear,
All right, that makes sense. Is there anything in this one that was noticeably worse, or you didn't like on this viewing?
Didn't really like the weird love interest with Aragorn and
No.
his groupie.
That's-
camp
Was
Yeah.
it a
girl.
love interest? I think she was just thirsting for him, bro.
Who knows? In
Well-
times of war, the line gets blurry.
His groupie. It was kind. I don't know. I guess it was kind of realistic, but
She just seemed like so she was just swooning for him, and she was like flustered and yeah, but she's like
she was making
a
him
little
food
girl.
and
Yeah.
yeah. It was just kind of.
Oh, we have
It didn't do much for me.
Is this what you
Wow.
were talking about?
Lothlorien.
Lothlorien. That's the elf place.
Could have put a gun to my head and said, "Where was it, Quinn?" Would have not gotten that.
Yeah, I would not either.
Thank you, KT Loren.
Thank you.
3 N's.
Thank you.
But it sounds like for the most part, it was a pretty solid second installment of the Lord of the Rings. All right, let's move on. This one, I don't know if I have a little quote thing for, but it's about quotes. There's a little secret segment that I wanted to quiz you guys on. So let me add this real quick.
What's the
quote? So
For
maybe
your brand new car.
Right.
maybe if you guys know this, let me know, because then you're not allowed to play, because this was in some of the prep or the description of the movie. But the American Film
Can you
Institute.
announce what's the quote again? Like that's the segment.
All right, guys. Today we're gonna play What's the Quote? That's terrible.
Yeah, I wanted to be like, "Bam, bam, 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 bam," but
Oh,
you can't do that.
I
know?
see.
It was an air horn. That's
No,
what I
that's-
did. Nuh-uh.
All right,
We
all
gotta
right,
get some.
all
All
right.
right. Anyways, the American Film Institute released the top 100 American cinema quotes in 2005. So 2005. This movie came out in 2002, and one quote from this movie made the list, and it's the only film to do so in the 21st century. And I'm gonna read out 4 quotes, and I want you guys to tell me which one you think made it into the top 100 American cinema quotes.
Cinema quotes. Okay.
All right. So it's kind of like a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Next time I should have some slides we could take a look at. That'll be good. But they're not that difficult, so if you just listen to me, you will have no problems at all. All right. So, number 1, My Precious by Gollum. Pretty self-explanatory. Number 2, There's Some Good in This World, Mr. Frodo, and It's Worth Fighting For by Samwise Gamgee. The
It's a good
end of
line.
the film.
It's a good line.
Number 3, All Our Hopes Now Lie with 2 Little Hobbits Somewhere in the Wilderness, said by Gandalf.
That
The end
ain't
of
it,
the film.
Chief.
Or number 4. not very American for you, Pat?
That ain't it.
What about this one? This one's pretty American. Number 4, potatoes. Boil them,
That might be
mash
it.
them,
That's
stick
it.
them in
That's
a
my
stew.
vote.
By
I'm
Sam
going-
Wise
exactly
Gamgee.
I'll go with 2 if you're going with that one.
Quinn,
So
when
you
you
got-
said this segment, that's exactly what came in my head.
Potatoes.
Potatoes.
Boil up, mash up, stick them in a stew.
So Grant, you're going with you're both going with Sam's quotes. Grant, you're
My
going with
mind says 2, but my heart says 4.
It's tough. I think it's 2.
and Pat says potatoes, boil and mash them, stick them in a stew.
Yes, sir. Locked in.
Locked in. Final answers.
Final answer.
I'm sorry, you guys are both incorrect. It was
It's
My
Precious?
Precious,
Oh,
by
All right,
Gollum.
that's fair too.
which is confusing too, because I mean, I'd expect that quote in all the films, but specifically they were like, this is from The Two Towers. So it's because maybe he says it a lot.
They don't know anything. Just a
But
bunch
I
of-
liked potatoes.
Potatoes.
Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew. So I'm sorry, guys. Nobody gets the prize.
It's okay.
But Pat, you were right. Wasn't that Gandalf? I don't think the American Film Institute wanted to be too on the nose with hobbits. and-
That ain't it.
That ain't it, Chief. All right. Well, thanks for playing, guys. And as one of our closing segments, I think we touched upon this a little bit earlier. Now that was funny. Grant, you said that it was noticeable that in this extended edition, it was more humorous, or maybe included more funny lines than the theatrical version. One, I mean, kind of related. Do you know some of those scenes that you know for sure were not in the theatrical one, or maybe just one? I don't know. So I need to ask
Can I
the
guess
audience. I don't know. I don't know the answer to this. So
I'm not sure.
if you do,
off the top of my head.
So, I think one scene is after the Battle of Isengard when Pippin and Merry find the pipe weed. I don't think that's in the theatrical one. When they're like follow the apples and they're like, oh my god, this is like North Ridgedale, like chronic.
like when they find his like stash house, is what you
Yeah.
saying? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I was gonna say that was one
I
of my
don't think it
favorite
is.
scenes that I laughed at because they're like, not because they find it, but they're like, they're like, don't be hasty.
Should we share with?
Yeah, should we share
No,
with
no.
the end? No. Which really
Describe
culminates
it.
the whole kind of annoyingness they've been dealing with their entire trip during the movie. So
Mhm.
I thought it was a great scene. I don't know why it wouldn't make the cut. But that was my favorite scene. Is there a scene that's not that scene that hey Grant you left at?
Yeah, well, actually, you just quoted it. I think the potato scene was really funny for me. And if you don't
Potatoes.
mind, it's funny for me because do you guys remember Albino Black Sheep? Like, it was early Flash site, like around early YouTube,
Like a Newgrounds competitor.
Yeah, Newgrounds competitor. They had some games, they had some videos, and
That
they
looks a little confused.
They have.
He wasn't
this-
on these dark sites.
They have this mashed taters. What's taters, eh? Potatoes. And they have a little Flash song about this. It's 1 minute long. You think I could play it for you
Yeah,
guys?
let's throw it in here, and if something happens, then something happens. But
All right. It's only got 2.6 million views. There's no copyright on here. I checked.
15 years
we
ago.
Should be okay.
That's an
15
old video.
years ago. And it was probably older because this is the YouTube version. It was like
Yeah.
on their site. So, all right. Ready?
Needs a few good
You guys hear it?
yep,
What's taters, precious? What's taters, huh? Potatoes. Boil 'em, mash 'em, stick 'em in a stew. Boil 'em, mash 'em, stick 'em in a stew. Boil 'em, mash 'em, boil 'em, boil 'em, boil 'em, mash 'em, boil 'em, boil 'em, boil 'em, mash 'em, stick 'em in a stew. Boil 'em, mash 'em, boil 'em, boil 'em. Potato, 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 potato. Boil 'em, mash 'em, stick 'em in a stew. Boil 'em, mash 'em, stick 'em in a stew. Boil 'em, mash 'em, stick 'em in a stew. Boil 'em, mash 'em, stick 'em in a stew. Potatoes, potatoes. Taters. What's taters, huh? Taters. What's taters, huh?
All right. That's you guys get
good
it.
enough.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that one.
So that was like such a childhood like core memory, and I never even knew where it was from. You know, like I knew it was from Lord of the Rings, but like you don't really. It's when you see the scene, that's all I can think of. Potato, what's taters? Eh?
Precious.
Yeah.
I loved when Gollum gets his fish too, and he's like trying to smack it, and then Sam's
Yeah.
like, "You just fry it up." He's like, "Fry?"
Yeah.
And then he's ruined it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I thought they were the best side quests, just from the humor perspective. Like it was also, I thought it was funny. Like Sam dropped something when they were climbing down the rope,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Grab that!" And I was like, "What is it?" He's like,
No,
"It's
he like
just some
risks his, he's
seasoning."
like it's like slow motion, and then he falls,
Boom.
and then like luckily they're at the bottom, and he's like, "What is it?" And he's like, "Oh, a salt blend from the Shire."
In case we get a roast chicken.
Very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine how much some of this animation. I mean, just the length it may have taken too. I mean, I'm reading things that even, Treebeard took between 28 and 48 hours per frame to render. So I'm sure Gollum was rendering just as slow.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they had a little, I don't know, some sort of green
outsource
screen. Outsource. Just let the machine do it. Let
Mm-hmm.
the machine do it. But any other scenes that you guys wanted to reminisce on before we move into our last segment? Potatoes. We got the highlights. Don't be hasty. Uh,
Let's jump into it. Let's do
Gimli
it.
and Legolas. All right, let's hit it with the final, the last but not least, the over under IMDb, where we decide whether the true rating of The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, is over or under the IMDb rating, the rating of the people.
And it's patented too.
It's patented too.
It's
In case you didn't know,
It's patented
it's
review, over under.
so if you think about using it, like don't, because you'll, those copyright strikes that we were just talking about, you'll get one of those from us.
It was. Let me tell you, talk about bureaucracy and red tape. The
Yep.
pain it was for Quarter Life critics to just be able to get the rights to use it, even though it came from our previous intellectual property of GQ Review.
That's right.
We had to go through so much paperwork.
We had to prove that we
had to
still owned
prove.
it.
Yeah,
They're
and
like,
they're like, this is a G&Q patented review.
they're so successful, you can't steal that from them.
And we said, we are them.
So we have a glitch on our site right now. that's it. But we're sitting at with 1.7 million votes. We're sitting at a 8.8. I think the same
Wow.
as the previous film. And I'll go first. I'm still gonna have to go under as a whole film. If I was just, I always like to provide caveats because I don't play by the rules. If it was just that Helm's Deep scene, it would have been an over. But little sluggish for me on the whole. But super cool
Yeah.
movie, great
Yeah.
stuff. Grant.
Yeah, same. I'm like excited to, I know I'll be watching more of these more and more in the future, and I'm excited. I'm getting into it. It's just slow for me. I think it's not my usual cup of tea is fantasy, and it's so lore heavy. It's again, maybe it's just the way my brain works and digests it, but it's so much to take in. It's just like I get lost. I get bogged down in the details a little bit. It's I find myself having to pop up for air and like, what's going on? And that's why it's like maybe when I was talking about like, oh, this feels like it's one arc. It's like, all right, I know this one arc and I'm like holding dear to it because everywhere else I'm probably a little lost. Like, what the fuck's going on? But I know they're trying to take the ring to Mordor. I'm clear on that. Everywhere else, like
It's reality.
It's not like I don't think they do. I think for the purpose of suspense and they're not going to talk about. It's so complicated. You can't sum up all these storylines. Or even foreshadow what's going to happen really too much to the viewer because there's so much going on. So I feel like I'm missing signs of foreshadowing that might. With other simpler movies where there's not much going on, you're like. Oh, I know what's going to happen. Oh, this is going to happen. This is easy. Okay, yeah, okay. And then the guy's going to get the girl or whatever, and you're like, okay, yeah,
It's a smaller
whatever.
scale, right?
Yeah, this is a huge scale.
This is history.
It's so it's very cool and I'm enjoying it, but I'm not at the 8.8 over 8.8 yet. I'm at the under 8.8. So
that leaves one of us.
Over.
It's
fine.
Tried
I
and
like
true. It is. I mean, sorry. Yeah. Did you have anything?
It's pretty much the same reasons as I said for the last one. Fantasy is hard to replicate. You have these like wondrous books that are very dense, very complicated, a lot of nuance, and just not a lot of translation to like a mainstream appeal. And I think this is just like the, for something that, for a fantasy series to be like one of the best series ever for movies is just like really cool and hard for me to say under, regardless of the rating.
It's like if you took the Civil War or something, any war, and you're like, we're just going to change every single person, and they all have magical abilities, and it's like you're covering years and years of things that could happen.
Was there?
Yeah.
Well, was there anything? I know you said from the first one, you said like there's actually 15 years in between, what Frodo getting the ring or seeing the ring for the first time. Was there any like small details that differed here?
I don't think they're small. I mean, I would go, and even just the Wikipedia page has a lot of the differences, and I think there's a considerable amount. That there's no like one thing like, oh, they actually did this instead of that. Like so many things were slightly altered or greatly altered to bring it to like a cinematic experience that I don't think I could have a quick summary. But yeah, it's tough. It's real tough to pull off. Lastly, it reminded me of took one screenwriting class in school, and
Me too.
hell yeah, bro.
Hell yeah.
Bam.
It's all you need.
The first part of it was the prompt was you came with your story, your pitch, or whatever it was called. Maybe like a 1-page thing. And I remember this one girl in the class, and she had such a cool pitch, and it sounded great, very fantasy like. Lots of room to go in many different directions, and I remember thinking at the beginning of class, like, oh man, she's a good writer, like she's got the best shit. And then like you shared pieces as the class goes on, and it's very easy to go in just a crazy, nothing makes sense, just there's too much magic and random dumb shit going on. And I was like, just reading some parts out, I was like, I in disbelief at how convoluted and stupid it got. But that original idea was so good.
Well, you make a really interesting point with fantasy is, if with any sort of material, when you're writing fiction, if it takes place in the real world, you're confined, right? Your bounds are already set for you. But if fantasy, it's really up to you to expand the constraints of the real world. But you can't expand it too much, right? There still has to be rules of the world, and you have to be consistent within that. Otherwise, you lose people. Like you can't. Yeah, you still have to have consistent rules, it's interesting. It's hard. I'm sure it's hard. I'm not a fantasy writer when I did some writing myself. I'm more character focused, less plot focused is how they usually classify. Like I know, anyways, but yeah, it's got to be hard.
Yep. All right, we have 2 unders and 1 over, similar to last installment, and I think that wraps up my directorial duties today. So what are we doing next time, Grant?
Next time, I don't even know what's the Pat. What are we doing next
Return
time?
of the King.
Return of the King.
Which you guys touched on. It's hard to end things in fantasy.
Ooh.
It's hard.
Look, he's throwing in a caveat already.
You have to.
I think he knows something.
You just throw out this world, and there are limitless possibilities. How can you wrap something up that the writer, the team, they may not want to end? You've seen it like time and time. Walking Dead.
If they don't get to Mordor and throw the ring in the volcano, I'm gonna be pissed.
Well, that's why we have to watch the Lord of the Rings: Return of the King Part 2 after.
Got him.
We're stunned.
Yeah.
But
Well,
yes.
just a little blurb is continuing the plot of the previous film, Return of the King. Return of the King is about Frodo, Sam, and Gollum making their final way towards Mount Doom to destroy the One Ring, unaware of Gollum's true intentions, while Merry,
Spoiler
Pippin,
alert.
Gandalf, Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli and the others join forces together against Sauron and his legions in the, what is it, Minas Tirith?
What did you call me?
Minas Tirith.
Minas Tirith.
Yeah, what he said.
So the one to destroy the One Ring, Mount Doom. Yeah, so I'm excited, you know.
Yeah. Endings
We'll
are tough.
see.
We'll see if they do it.
I think this one, the extended edition, has a solid hour of extended material.
I think it won
FYI.
every Oscar of the year.
That's a lot of Oscars.
Yeah. Swept. So we'll see.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
All right, take us away, Grant.
All right. Thank you all for listening, for watching. You can follow us on our social media. We have our Instagram. That's probably what we use the most. Our handle is Quarter Life Critics. One big ass long string there.
Subscribe on
And
YouTube.
Subscribe on YouTube. We have you can find us on podcasts if you prefer that method to listen instead of watch. And we are on all the popular platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcasts, and Overcast, all of them. So thank you guys again, and you guys should join us for the final piece of the Lord of the Rings trilogy 2 weeks from today, where we'll be doing Lord of the Rings Return of the King.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.